Welcome to the friendliest campus in the South.
Shotgun, Blanchard, one back set, rolls right, pressure coming, throws, Middleton going,
To the gym of the hills.
He lifts it to left, that one's pretty well hit, Hall on the run, that ball is gone!
Home of the Jacksonville State Gamecocks.
Over the day, over the Hawks, he fires up at the buzzer, and drains the three! Good defense by Cunningham. Gregory releases the way. Pulls up, he checks.
This is your podcast for JSU Sports.
high fly ball, center field, it is back, it's out of here!
With your hosts, Brandon Owens and Cody Hooks. This is Cocky Nation.
What is going on, Cocky Nation? This is your favorite host, James Brandon Owens. Yeah, I called you by your full name. And Cody. I'm just going to call me by my first name. Or as everybody likes to call me, Coach Hooks, because that's what I go by all day.
Well, you
day
are a
now.
Wrestling coach, so I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah, I know. But welcome back to another episode of Cocky Nation, where all things cocky are talked about on this podcast. And we have a couple things that we're going to talk about today. Some things that are cocky, some things that are not cocky. I can't stop saying cocky. I mean, this is like the statement of the century when you are a JSU fan. But let's go ahead and get started. We got a couple things to talk about. We are going to dive right into basketball as we are transitioning into the basketball season. We will talk a couple things with football, but we want to focus on basketball right now. So the biggest thing that happened with basketball with JSU was our last win that we just had. And it was a great win because, number one, we were projected to lose this game, number one.
Mm-hmm.
And number two, it was a very good game. It was very close. Jacksonville State was able to pull out the dub against ETSU, 63-61. And if you haven't looked at the stats yet, they are kind of nice. I actually really like them. Shout out to Skylar Potter for getting 27 points total in the game. We had 12 out of 26 3-pointers, 13 for 15 free throws, 26 rebounds, 4 offensive rebounds. The list goes on. I'm super excited about these stats. I think they overall, I think these are our best stats up to this point in the season. But Brandon, go ahead and share your thoughts.
Yeah, as far as just playing a well-rounded game of basketball, I think this was our best game of the season so far, and maybe it's a turning point. Although we did play really well against North Dakota State, but at the time, North Dakota State only had one win. I don't think North Dakota State's going to do as good as we all thought they were going to do this year. But I feel like I'm okay with our 3-pointers because that tends to just get better as the season goes on. But field goals, we've usually been pretty decent at having some decent field goal stats.
Mm-hmm.
And that number to me is a little low for my liking.
I agree.
I think it can get a little higher, but our free throws, we were pretty good on free throws, almost 90%. So I was very impressed with that. Watched a little bit of the game. They looked decent. But it's still early. Like A-Sun, when we get to A-Sun play, we're gonna have to turn up the heat a little bit, and especially with our next opponent, we're gonna have to bring our A game.
I definitely agree. One thing that I do find interesting with this game, and I don't know if Brandon, you would agree with me on this, but so King played 38 minutes in the game, okay, overall, and which is the most out of anyone on the team. But if you look at the number of points he scored, he only scored 4. Now, in past games, he's scored higher, has played the same amount of time, give or take. But it was interesting to me as I was watching this game because we didn't see a lot of scoring from King, which honestly
we did see a lot of assisting from him. He had 6 assists that game.
I really liked him in that supporting role. I thought he looked really good, backing up Potter and as well as Roberts during their times in the game. And I really enjoyed him in that supporting role because we know that King can score. We know that he's a good basketball player. We know that he has the talent to make those I can't talk today, to make those baskets, but we didn't see a lot of that, and I'm okay with that. Honestly, I think overall that that defensive and assistive role looks really good for him.
I think we're starting to play better as a team overall, especially with yes, the stats aren't necessarily like stellar, but with the team performance in this game, I'm very happy with the stats because this was the most. This is how do I want to phrase this? This is the best I have seen them play as a team. The most cohesive I've seen the team play.
Right. I definitely would agree with you. Now, overall, our record is still sitting 4-4. We are still technically ranked 12th in the ASUN conference. But again, we are starting to see a little bit of that change, a little bit of momentum, especially since last week we talked about how as we get into the new year, it's time to nut up or shut up. We've talked about this. And so I'm excited to see, I would like to see more of this function, this process, the system that we're using that we just used. Now, was the game very close? Absolutely. I mean, the score shows it's 63-61. We stayed in there the entire game. We led in the first half, 31-28, which was very solid. It bounced a little bit back and forth closer to the end, but JSU ended up pulling out that dub, especially when JSU was projected to lose this game. So we need to just keep working with that momentum, especially since our next game is a very large game. So tomorrow, or depending on whenever this gets posted, just to make sure
it will probably get posted tomorrow. So today.
So today, if you're listening to today, December 8th, JSU will be traveling to Utah if they're not already there in town today.
They are.
Mm-hmm. So we play them at 9 p.m. and that's 9 p.m. Utah time, which is Mountain Time. I can't remember what the time zone specific is. I'm a history teacher and I don't know.
I think they're Pacific, to be honest. No, they might be Mountain. I don't know.
I don't know. But regardless, we do play Utah at 9 p.m. It is going to be on the Pac-12 network. So if you are having difficulty finding that, always double check with ESPN, and they usually can kind of guide you in the right direction. I'm not one to shoot down JSU, but we're pretty sure we know how this game's going to run.
I don't know. You give your thoughts first.
Okay, so let me just make sure I have the appropriate stuff up in front of me. Okay, so Utah is currently ranked 7-2. They are third in the Pac-12 right now, and I don't know what the spread is for us.
14.5 in Utah's favor.
Okay, so I will say that number could be higher as far as the spread is.
I honestly think it's a little too high.
I think it's safely set at the appropriate odds. Now, do I know that the probability of JSU winning this game is low? Yes, it is what it is. You got to accept what you got to accept. We have a 9% chance. We have a 9% chance of winning this game. But no one thought that the football team was going to beat Florida State last year, and look what happened. Granted, Florida State looked god-awful last year. But the fact of the matter is that you never know. We may be able to pull out the dub. Something may happen. You never know. the Huntsman Center may be just kind of the wrong temperature for Utah. Who knows? Would I like to see JSU win? Absolutely. But you just don't know. I think overall, my biggest takes on this would just be work with the system that works. Okay, let's play it. Let's play it safe. Let's play it strategically. What we played with ETSU, adapt the same thing. If somebody has to take the step up and say, okay, instead of me wanting to score a bunch of points, let this person score a bunch of points. If it's Potter assisting King or King assisting Potter, then just let it happen. Let's not try to fight for the ball. Let's not try to, pull off any funky shots if we don't have to. Let's play a strong game. Let's play a smart game. That would be ultimately what I would say. Focus on that defense. That's one of the biggest things that I saw us struggle with when we played Alabama. Alabama was ranked super high in the SEC. Look what the score ended up being for us on that.
Luckily, Utah is not ranked in the top 25.
It is not. However, they are still third in the Pac-12. And so however you want to take that, it is what it is. So we just got to play smart. We just got to play a smart game.
Yeah. I think when you look at the team stats, JSU is scoring more points per game than Utah. But JSU is allowing more points per game than Utah. Utah is holding its opponents to an average of 58 points per game. Field goal percentage is about the same. Rebounds is, Utah is out rebounding JSU by a good bit. The assists is pretty much the same. Blocks pretty much the same. Maybe slightly favored in Utah's favor. But here's what I find interesting. Utah is a good defensive team if you look at how many points they're allowing their opponents to score. JSU defensively is a good, they have about 7 steals average per game. So compared to Utah's 4. So maybe this could be a lot closer than what we think. Utah did lose to Sam Houston earlier in the season. So, and they lost to Sam Houston by 10. So maybe, just maybe. That's why I think this spread is a little too high. Because I think there's some vulnerabilities that Utah still has. And JSU is a smart basketball team. They haven't shown it at times, but overall they are a very smart basketball team. So I think that could probably play in JSU's favor if they can execute pretty well in this game. They could stand a chance at upsetting the Utes.
I definitely agree. And we definitely will be checking back on those predictions later. But Brandy, do you have any other thoughts on basketball right now?
Just pray for our boys because this is probably one of the bigger games our program has ever played. Utah is a pretty good opponent. They usually are really good in the Pac-12. So just pray for our boys to be able to give a good game.
I definitely agree. Well, with that being said, we are going to kind of flip the script a little bit. So even though JSU football, as you know, is ended, we've talked about what that looks like and so on and so forth. But FCS football is not over. Okay, so if you're still keeping up with it, we are in not the quarter. We are currently
yes, we are in the quarterfinals.
Sorry, I always get it mixed up. So we are currently in the quarterfinals. We still have 8 teams that are a part of it, and nothing is set in stone yet. We've seen some very, very, very solid games as far as FCS is concerned. So currently, we still have South Dakota State, who's ranked number 1. Holy Cross, who's ranked at number 8. They are playing this Saturday at 11 a.m. Sanford, number
On
6.
ESPN2. On
ESPN2.
ESPN2, I think.
Something like
I
that.
think that's correct. It's on one of the ESPN networks, but I'm fairly certain it's ESPN2.
Right.
There's 3 FCS games that are on television. It's on ESPN, not ESPN2.
Okay. So we do. So that game will be happening. We also have Sanford, who's ranked number 6 right now. They will be traveling to good old Fargo to face off against North Dakota State,
Bless them.
Who's ranked number 3.
Bless them.
It's gonna be a tough game.
Bless them.
Okay. And they play at 6 p.m.
On ESPN2. That's on ESPN2.
Okay. On Friday, we have another game happening. Both the next 2 games I list are going to be on Friday. So on Friday at 9:15 Central Standard Time, William Mary, who's ranked number 5 right now, will be facing off against number 4 Montana State. And then we also have Incarnate Word, who will be facing off against Sacramento State at 9:30 Central Standard Time as well. So let's start one by one. So let's go back up to the South Dakota State and Holy Cross game. I think this is going to be a solid game. I think overall, we're fairly certain we know how this game's going to go. South Dakota State has been completely dominating all their opponents. They beat St. Francis.
As a lot of people say, South Dakota State's just on another level than the rest of the FCS, and that's including North Dakota State.
Oh, of course. But, South Dakota State got the bye. They faced off against Delaware. Delaware had a really good looking. Just let me finish. They had a good looking game in their eyes against St. Francis, 56-17. Okay. But then when they traveled to South Dakota State, they ended up losing that game 42-6. And so when you look at the games that Holy Cross played, they played New Hampshire. They struggled a little bit with New Hampshire. I would have liked to see them if they were ranked number 8. I would have liked to see that spread a little bit higher. But it is what it is. But I'm gonna pull for South Dakota State in this game.
So with Holy Cross, I mean, congrats on a fantastic season. They've posted their first 12-0 start in program history. So congrats, guys. But, I mean, Holy Cross was actually predicted to lose against New Hampshire. And by a lot of people. I think Holy Cross was favored. Let me double check real quick.
I would definitely double check.
Holy Cross was favored by 7. So Holy Cross did cover the spread. But a lot of people predicted Holy Cross to lose, including myself. I just thought New Hampshire was a lot better team, a lot more talented. But I was wrong. But I think Holy Cross's success comes to a speedy halt against South Dakota State. It's not going to be pretty. I think the prediction that I had for this game was like 35-14. Like, it's going to be bad.
Yeah, I've probably put up just a little bit higher, honestly, but that's just me. So we're both in agreement. It's going to be South Dakota State that wins that game. Okay. Next game is going to be North Dakota State versus Sanford. Now, okay, I know what Brandon's going to say, but just hear me out, okay?
What do you think I'm going to say?
So, Southeastern Louisiana struggled with Idaho, okay? Southeastern Louisiana threw in a decent game against Sanford. Now, Sanford had some problems overall. Their backup quarterback came in, and that was, kind of like the decision maker there. When you look at North Dakota State, they ended up beating Montana 49-26. I would be lying if I didn't say that Sanford, though most likely will lose this game, will not at least put up a decent game. I think Sanford will get about 2 or 3 solid touchdowns. Now, Fargo is a tough place to play. We know this. However, one of the advantages that I think that Sanford has, that, with them playing in North Dakota State, is number one, Fargo's is a dome. Okay, they play in a dome. So it's not like you're playing in Maine where it's going to be butt crack freezing. Okay, we're playing in a dome where it's going to be a better arena. It's going to be a better place. And with them being from Alabama, it's going to be something that just don't count them out completely. I think they'll put up a decent game. Yes, North Dakota State will probably win this game. I still think it's going to be closer than people think. I'd like to believe that.
So Samford has had another team that has probably one of its best seasons in a very long time. I think they're playing for a chance to go to the semis, and the last time that happened was in the 90s. Like, that was the last time Samford went to the semifinals. Now, granted, it was a smaller field back then, but I agree. I think Samford has the potential to give North Dakota State fits, but I think it's going to be early on. I think the further this game goes, the worse it's going to get. You could see North Dakota State get ahead like 31-14, and then they put in their backups and their third strings, and Samford gets some like a field goal or a couple of touchdowns and makes the game look a lot closer than what it actually is. I just think it's going to be really hard for Samford to go into the Fargo Dome and get this win. It'd be impressive if they did, and if they did, and depending on how one of the other semifinals goes, Samford could host the semifinals in Birmingham. So
if that was the case, I'd love to be at that game.
Well, sadly, I cannot.
I wouldn't be able to either. On the 16th, I'm going to be traveling to Disney World. So
yeah, my sister's getting
Orlando.
married. So
yeah, your sister would absolutely
she would murder me.
you.
She wouldn't just murder
absolutely
me.
Murder you.
But I think the score is going to be something along the lines of like 38-24.
I can go with that score.
The spread is set at 17.5, and I first saw that spread, I was like, Samford's definitely covering that, but it's still going to be a pretty wide margin win for North Dakota State.
Right. Now, on the other half of the bracket, okay, we have William & Mary, who's ranked number 5, and Montana State, who's ranked number 4. Now, if you ask me, do not sleep on William & Mary.
Oh no, absolutely not.
Listen, every Bobcat fan is going to hate me right now. But I saw how y'all played in the national championship. Yes. I already hear the comments being written down right now. Well, at least our team made it to the national championship. Doesn't matter. You blew it. You absolutely blew it in the national championship.
And they struggled in the second round against Weber State. That's the second time they struggled with Weber State.
Yes. And you shouldn't have struggled as much as you should. I know this game's probably going to end up becoming a really close game, probably up to a field goal. But I am going to pull for William & Mary. I'm going for the underdog here. I think William & Mary has a solid shot. They got a decent offense that's backing them up. A good quarterback that's going to show some prominence, and I don't know. I'm going to pull for the underdog here.
So these teams run very similar offenses. They're both run heavy. Their pass defense is not that great. Their rush defense is. I'd have to look at the stats, and I'd have to go back and listen to FCS Fans Nation. But I think their rush defense wasn't terrible, but their pass defense was. But like if you look at like the rushing game, these two teams are literally at like 2 and 3. So this is going to be a very fast game. Fast meaning it's not going to take very long for this game to be played. Now, granted, I will give credit where credit is due. It's hard to play in Bozeman. It's very hard to play in Bozeman.
Agreed.
But this William and Mary team was like I personally thought they were not going to do well this season whatsoever, and they have just proved me wrong this entire season. And the same can be said for Samford, but we're not on that game. But yeah, I have to go William and Mary. I think it's going to come down to like whoever has the ball last, and it's just going to be back and forth. The score I have for this game is 28-24 William and Mary.
I can hear I hear all of the Bobcat fans just absolutely wrecking us right now. I hear them calling FCS Fan Nations, and they're gonna say cancel them right now. But hey, it is what it is. You should have canceled your flights to Frisco last year. But hey, it is what it is. I mean, you saw all the memes where it was a
you
bad saw game the plane took off. They're all sitting on the tarmac. So
I mean, that game last year was just bad. And
I mean, what are they going to do?
To me, Montana State has not lived up to potential.
I mean, what are Montana State fans going to do to me? Kick me out of FCS?
We're on our way out.
So we're on our way out anyways. So it is what it is. Okay, last game is Incarnate Word and Sacramento State. Okay, now I would also say that this is a keep an eye out type game because
yes, I agree.
Because Richmond completely dominated Davidson, but then Richmond held out against Sacramento State. It was only a 7-point difference. It was 38-31. So that's on one side, and then on the other side, Furman ended up beating up Elon, and then Furman ended up holding out against Incarnate Word. And it was only 8, 9, 10, 11, a 3-point difference. It was a field goal. So this is going to be a very, if I was to watch any game on Friday night, this would be the game to watch. This and William and Mary and Montana State, because these are the games that they're on the bottom end, other than Sacramento State, who's ranked number 2 right now, which some people would argue that they shouldn't be ranked that high. But hey, I'm not part of the FCS Fan Nation podcast. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, if you ever want to add me on. But the fact of the matter is that this is going to be a solid game. You know, they're playing in Sacramento State. I just see this being a very, very good game. I think this is going to be a heavy scoring game overall. I think it's going to be up in I would argue it's going to be up either into the high 30s, even into the 40s as far as scoring wise, because I think the one thing that both of them do struggle with is the defense. I think their defenses are not terrible, but they could be a hell of a lot better. And I think that whoever wins this game is going to have a rude awakening to face when they play in the semifinals.
So the one thing that Incarnate Word has going for them is that they have who everybody thinks is going to win the Walter Payton, Lindsey Scott Jr., who is phenomenal. He is phenomenal. I have enjoyed watching him play all season long.
Mm-hmm.
But Sacramento State has some really good key players. They actually have a 2-quarterback system. They have a quarterback for passing and a quarterback for running. O'Hare is the quarterback for running, and then you throw Scatabo, their halfback, running back. Anyways, the guy that gets the handoffs, you put those two together. I watched the Richmond game, and Richmond could not stop either one of them on the ground. So it'll be interesting. Sacramento State is up there as far as rushing offense. Incarnate Word, I believe, is number 1 in passing offense. There's one thing I want to look at because it was very interesting, and I think this is the reason it's going to keep the game close if I can find it. There we go. Yeah, so the rushing defense for Incarnate Word is not even in the top 50 from what I'm seeing. Oh, wow, there's Jacksonville State.
We're struggling here, yo.
Yeah, sorry. I tried to pull it up before Cody finished, and I couldn't.
I moved too fast for him.
Yes, you do.
You'll be okay.
Okay, Incarnate Word is ranked 42nd, so they are in the top 50. They're ranked 42nd as far as rushing defense. And then Sac State's passing defense. Let's get over there real quick. Where'd it go? Passing yards allowed. I think Jamie said Sac State's is like in the 90s. Yeah, 91st. So one weakness is a strength for the other team. So I think this game is going to be really, really close. I think Sacramento State is going to run it down Incarnate Word's throat. I think Incarnate Word is going to pass it like just complete air raid. And it's going to be a back and forth game. But I think in the end, because there have been so many close games for Sacramento State against tough teams. Now, granted, they won all of their regular season games. So, but when you play 2 back-to-back really good teams in the playoffs, you're going to get stopped eventually. And I think they get stopped this time. So my score is going to come down to the wire, probably within the last 3 minutes, just like it was for Incarnate Word and Furman. I have Incarnate Word winning 49-42.
Okay. I still think that Sacramento State will end up pulling out of this game. I do believe that it's going to end up being by a field goal nonetheless. So I would say the score for me will end up being probably 38-35. I think that's where I'm going to land as far as like score wise. But that's just me personally. But
all right, so we just one team difference for us,
right? But hey, that's just me being as the sign says, cocky. But speaking of cocky, we want to do our last prediction, our cocky prediction, which is for that Utah game that we're having today, depending on when you're listening to this. Brandon, I'll let you go first.
So I think this game is actually going to be within 10 points. A lot of students are going to be heading home. Now, granted, I don't know Utah's academic calendar, so I don't know how many students exactly are going to be going home right now, but they may look at this team and be like, who the heck is Jacksonville State? I've never heard of them. I don't want to go to this game. So I don't know. But if you look at the stats that we were reading off earlier, I think it's going to end up being a lot closer than 14.5. I'm going to say it's probably going to be maybe a 9 or 8 point difference. But I'm picking Utah.
I will also agree with you on that. Listen, JSU, we love you, but we're just being brutally honest. I will say that it's going to be a 15-point difference. I'm going to go
So
higher.
you're taking the over. You're taking Utah to cover.
Yeah, I think
I'm taking JSU to cover.
I'm taking. Well, I think it's going to be a 15-point difference. I think JSU will throw in a really solid game. I think they'll come back in the second half, but I think Utah will end up taking this game.
Okay.
I think that's my final prediction.
I think you're wrong, but
we'll find out. But you know what? We'll figure it out, and next week we'll definitely talk about it because you know what? We do this almost every week. Now, we do want to go ahead and kind of pre-warn you guys. So next week we will have a longer episode just to kind of talk about overall the different games that will be coming up. And then we are going to be taking a little bit of a hiatus, a time, because we are getting closer to the holiday season. Like I said, I will be traveling next weekend out of town to go to Orlando, so I won't even be around for a couple days. And then Brandon, he's got his own family, he's got a wedding to catch, so I definitely, again, if
plus I'm going to Frisco for the championship game.
Exactly. Brandon, please tell your sister, I mean, she already knows, but please remind her that I absolutely love and adore her, and please let her know, and Josh, that I absolutely love them both and wish I could make it to the wedding. But regardless, we want to thank each and every one of you for listening. Please catch us next week as we talk about some more of the basketball games. We'll catch up on what the playoffs look like for the FCS football games. And then, of course, if you're not following us on social media, you need to go to our social media platform. We have Twitter, we have Instagram, we have Facebook. Most of them are Cocky_Nation, except for on Facebook, where we actually have a full name, and it's Cocky Nation, a JSU podcast. And, of course, we want to also thank all of our FCS Fan Nations fans and friends that continue to support both this platform as we continue to mention and support the other platforms, because, again, we would love to stay on this platform post next year. But, I'm going to keep saying it until it becomes reality. It is what it is, because even though we may be making the change, we'll never make the change in our hearts. Did that sound heartfelt, Brandon?
Yes, it most certainly.
Then we're definitely going to take it. But again, thank you guys for listening. Brandon, any last thoughts?
Just I'm ready to. I mean, I love doing this. I really do, but it starts to get a lot, just like school does. So I'm ready for a little bit of a break and spend time with family and prepare to see our fellow podcasters on this network in Frisco and just enjoy spending time with each other. So I'm really excited. I hate that next week is our last episode before we basically take our winter break, I guess you could say.
Something like that.
But yeah,
How do you even get a break? What is a break?
Why did you have? I'm about to be a teacher. Why did you have to say that?
Congratulations, you won't have one. But again, thank you guys. We really appreciate you guys, and we love each and every one of you. Of course, go Gamecocks and fear the beak.